The freezing, ice-cold North Atlantic Ocean. We're talking dense midnight fog and the kind of bone-chilling cold that instantly numbs your fingers. Pushing through this insane weather, a massive ship is creeping forward when suddenly, with zero warning, it comes to a dead stop right in the middle of the ocean. No crashing waves, no massive storm, just this suffocating, creepy, dead silence all around them. Thinking they just hit a rock, the crew lit up their torches and peeked over the edge, and what they saw straight up sent shivers down their spines. Straight out of the pitch-black depths of the ocean, a terrifying nightmare of a killer was rocketing up at top speed, locked directly onto them. Seconds later, with a massive thunder-like crack from below, the monster completely obliterated the ship. The sheer force of the impact was so insane that the heavy wooden planks at the bottom just snapped and blew apart. Thrown out into that freezing water, the crew instantly realized one terrifying fact. There was zero chance of survival. They were completely helpless, stranded in the middle of nowhere in the deep ocean. This wasn't just your regular wild animal attack. No, this was a highly calculated hit by a mastermind serial killer designed to perfectly trap its prey. Without making a single sound, this creature used next-level IQ to completely wrap itself around the entire ship. The arms of this terrifying monster were thick, long, and deadly, exactly like a giant anaconda. The massive, heavy masts of the ship snapped like fragile matchsticks in its grip. In the pitch-black darkness and freezing cold, there was nobody around to hear their desperate screams. Their fight for survival was buried forever in that ice-cold water. In the blink of an eye, it dragged the entire ship straight down into the black abyss, leaving nothing behind except some floating wood and that blood-curdling dead silence. Zero evidence left behind, a flawless, 100% perfect murder. For years, this brutal string of murders just kept happening across oceans worldwide with zero consequences. When a few sailors who actually got lucky enough to survive these horrific attacks spilled the details on this unknown killer, the whole world was genuinely stunned. Because right before these attacks went down, the water around the ship would start violently boiling with this wild roaring sound. It looked exactly like an underwater volcano was erupting right there. And on top of that, this heavy, suffocating, toxic stench of ammonia would completely take over the area. An unbearable smell that would make your eyes water. So what was the story behind this bizarre smell? And why did the ocean randomly start boiling right before an attack out of nowhere? Science couldn't figure it out for centuries, but today we are doing a massive deep dive into the ocean's biggest, most unsolved mystery of all time.
This insane string of unsolved ocean murders didn't just start overnight. If we actually do a deep dive into the historical receipts, we'll see this monster has actively been out here hunting in the ocean for centuries. There's this book written in Norway all the way back in the 1180s called The King's Mirror, and it holds the very first official record of this killer. And this wasn't just some made-up myth or clickbait. It was documented as a highly lethal monster, specifically camping out just to claim the lives of sailors. Back then, the locals actually gave this ocean demon a name, Hafgufa, a sea monster with a size so overwhelmingly massive and terrifying, it's completely beyond human imagination. For the sailors of that era, just hearing that name was worse than their darkest sleep paralysis demon. The reason? Because this creature's hunting strategy was next-level tactical and high IQ. Instead of actively chasing its prey, it had the ultimate criminal mindset to bait the prey right into its own trap. Lurking in the freezing, pitch-black depths to hunt down humans, today we are exploring the very real history of this deadly monster. Welcome to Neutrix Vision. If you want to keep seeing mind-blowing facts and unhinged historical mysteries like this, definitely smash that subscribe button. Have you ever actually thought about how a killer could weaponize its own body into a living death trap? Centuries ago, this monster did exactly that. This creature's MO was insanely sinister and ridiculously brutal. It would just chill right in the middle of the ocean, staying dead motionless like a massive floating island. Looking at it from a distance, any sailor would genuinely think they just discovered a brand new shoreline or a fresh island to kick back on. Completely burned out from sailing for days on end, those sailors would finally catch a break and steer their ship right up to that island. Assuming it was 100% safe and secure a spot, they would blindly drop their massive iron anchor right onto it. And boom, in that exact split second, they would realize they just dropped straight into the jaws of the world's biggest serial killer, because that heavy iron anchor was actually slamming directly into the monster's flesh. Before they even had a chance to try and make a run for it, those massive anaconda-like arms had already violently swarmed the entire ship. Without giving them even a microsecond to scream or make a sound, it would instantly drag them and the ship straight down into the pitch-black void of the ocean. Getting fatally baited by this deadly mind game, who knows how many thousands of people lost their lives down in those bottomless ocean trenches back in the day. Time went on, but by the 1700s on that freezing Norwegian coast, this paranoia was spreading wildly fast, like a deadly virus. It turned into this terrifying nightmare scenario where anyone going out to fish had zero guarantee of making it back alive. Massive boats heading out into the night water were just vanishing forever into the dark without leaving a single trace behind. The splintered wood washing up on the beach the next morning was often the only receipt proving they even went out there the day before. This unidentified killer knew human behavior and our daily patterns shockingly well. For its attacks, it kept its hunting schedule flawlessly timed, locking in on those pitch-black, completely moonless nights. Hearing the stories from the few rare survivors who somehow lucked out, it became crystal clear that they were all dealing with the exact same monster. To investigate these bizarre, mysterious disappearances, the Bishop of Norway and renowned legendary historian Erik Pontoppidan stepped up to the plate. Acting like a lead detective, he went on a full-blown mission to track down this unknown killer. This ultra-deep investigation ran for several grueling years. He pulled every single minor detail from those sailors who barely made it back from the jaws of death. He obsessively scrubbed through all the ancient naval records. And finally, in 1752, Erik Pontoppidan dropped the official published report of his entire investigation. And let me tell you, this was a genuinely mind-blowing, jaw-dropping reveal. He announced to the whole world that the thing attacking sailors on the Norwegian coast wasn't some fake ghost or demon, but a colossal flesh-eating animal living in the deepest ocean trenches. For the first time in recorded history, he actually gave that deadly monster a name, the Kraken. What everyone thought was just a myth or just some fake creepypasta until then, he officially declared as a 100% real serial killer. And that was all it took. The name Kraken swept all across Europe like an unstoppable hurricane. After reading the terrifying details of Pontoppidan's report, a bunch of people completely lost the guts to ever step foot in the ocean again. The reason? Because in that exact report, he broke down another horrifyingly brutal murder method used by the Kraken in extreme detail. The Kraken actually had another deadly weapon that was way more terrifying than those long anaconda arms. The vicious tactic it used to drag ships straight down into the sea would legitimately freeze your brain just hearing about it. The second it spotted its prey, the Kraken would randomly shoot right up to the surface and then dive back down into the deepest trenches at breakneck speed. When a creature that massive shoots down at that kind of speed, it triggers a dangerously powerful whirlpool right on the ocean's surface. It creates this terrifying scenario where the ocean water starts violently spinning with an ear-splitting roar. It essentially acts exactly like a sudden black hole just spawning in the middle of the ocean. No matter how huge a ship is, if it gets caught in this lethal whirlpool even once, there is virtually zero chance of making it out.
Ships just spin out of control, getting sucked straight down into those bottomless ocean trenches. Even if it couldn't physically grab its target ship directly with its hands, the Kraken had hacked the system to find the easiest, most deadly method to permanently wipe them off the map. Taking out its prey without even touching them, dragging them straight into the void, this killer's dark criminal mindset had even the entire science community deeply terrified.
Years went by. By the end of the 18th century, the world had officially leveled up into a brand new era of modern science. And with that, the entire angle of these murder investigations pulled a complete 180. Sitting safely on land inside their prestigious universities, the so-called scientists of that era completely rejected Pontoppidan's reports, treating the whole thing like an utter joke. The reason? Because nobody could drop any solid physical proof right in front of them. They confidently declared that there was zero way a creature that huge could ever survive the crushing high-pressure environment of those extreme ocean depths. Those poor sailors who actually risked their lives and barely survived the jaws of death, the scientists just gaslit them, labeling them as nothing but drunks and liars. Just like that, the authorities permanently closed the file on the biggest century-old crime case of all time. A creature named the Kraken straight up doesn't exist. This bold statement from the science community gave sailors a huge sigh of relief. By doing this, humanity intentionally chose to blindly ignore a terrifying, pitch-dark truth. Brushing all of this off as just a myth, they fearlessly started heading right back out into the ocean. That intense paranoia of the sea completely vanished, and this dangerous illusion of fake safety went completely viral worldwide. But hey, things were definitely not as simple as humans thought, because just closing your eyes on land doesn't magically delete the brutal truth hiding in those deep ocean trenches, right? This exact extreme overconfidence blindly dragged humanity straight into a fatal disaster. The dark reality was that humans living in deep denial just made it ridiculously easy for this killer to secure its prey. The science community might have slammed this case shut, but out in the freezing darkness of the North Atlantic, that mastermind serial killer was still out there, claiming victims with zero interruptions. Ships heading out to sea randomly started getting hit with unexpected attacks all over again. On those freezing nights, the ocean water started boiling violently once again with that terrifying roar. Reeking with that toxic stench of ammonia, those gigantic, nightmare-inducing arms just kept dragging humans and their ships straight down into the void. But back then, the world was completely clueless about this dark reality, because the science community easily brushed off all those missing sailors' deaths by just blaming them on standard ocean storms. Without raising a single red flag, and without dropping a single piece of evidence, that killer silently ruled the depths of the ocean like this for years. Lurking in that pitch-black darkness, it would just quietly watch its prey sail right into its trap. Exactly like a hardcore criminal, patiently lurking and waiting for the perfect moment. For several decades, this dark secret stayed completely buried and secured down in those bottomless ocean trenches. But then, in 1857, something so incredibly unexpected happened that it truly blew everyone's minds. That ancient crime file the science community thought was permanently shut, it suddenly got ripped wide open all over again. This time, this wildly bizarre object just mysteriously washed up on a beach in Denmark. When a fresh investigator, a Danish zoologist named Japetus Steenstrup, actually examined this thing, he was genuinely left speechless. It was definitely not a regular fish or some basic animal skeleton. Instead, it looked exactly like the razor-sharp beak of some giant bird. But obviously, no bird on Earth could logically have a beak this ridiculously huge. In reality, this was the signature weapon of a brutal killer, a terrifying, deadly murder weapon designed exclusively to shred and devour its prey's flesh. And that one single discovery completely flipped the entire history of the ocean upside down. Acting exactly like a top-tier forensic expert, Steenstrup deeply analyzed this weapon. After running those extremely detailed tests, he dropped the shocking truth reveal on the entire world. That beak did not belong to a land bird. It was the mouth of a colossal monster lurking in the pitch-black ocean, a real-life giant squid. Those sailors that science had been blindly ignoring for centuries, calling their stories just fake myths, the existence of their terrifying monster was now 100% scientifically proven. The mastermind killer known as the Kraken was actually just a giant squid all along. And for the first time in history, the science community gave this serial killer an official name: Architeuthis dux. This single discovery by Steenstrup instantly decoded so many ancient secrets. The boiling ocean and the suffocating ammonia stench those sailors talked about years ago, the world finally understood the actual logic behind it. What actually helps this giant creature float in that extreme high-pressure environment at the bottom of the ocean is the intense levels of ammonia packed into its muscles. And just like that, right when it attacks, it uses jet propulsion to blast out ink and water at terrifying maximum force, which is exactly why those sailors genuinely thought the ocean was violently boiling. This wasn't some ghost or demon. It was truly nature's ultimate, perfect creation, engineered purely for hunting. But wait, the investigation wasn't over yet, because nobody had actually laid eyes on the full body of this terrifying killer, dead or alive. But that moment was approaching incredibly fast.
October 1873, the coast of Logy Bay in Newfoundland, Canada. The most intense, ultimate showdown in history went down right here. Out of nowhere, the water started violently boiling around a tiny boat with two fishermen who were just quietly sitting and fishing. With zero warning, from the very bottom of the ocean, gigantic, anaconda-like tentacles shot up at top speed and completely wrapped around their boat. It was another terrifying monster from the exact same killer species that had been dragging their ancestors into the pitch-black void for centuries. When a game over looked all but confirmed, at the very last second, they grabbed an axe and swung with everything they had at one of those long arms crushing their boat. Taking that bloody, severed arm as a grim trophy, they booked it straight back to shore to save their lives. This was the very first brutal counterattack ever landed by humans onto the bodies of these vicious killers. But the investigation definitely didn't end right there. Just a few days later, another genuinely mind-blowing incident happened on that exact same coast. For the first time in recorded history, humans actually managed to trap a giant squid of this killer species right inside their net. After a grueling, long, and intense struggle, they finally managed to drag that monster all the way onto the beach. The second he heard about this incident, a historian named Reverend Moses Harvey immediately sprinted over there. Acting exactly like a crime scene investigator, he stood face to face with that colossal corpse. Handing over a measly $10, he straight up bought the body of that terrifying monster off the fisherman. He had a full-blown master plan to completely expose this hidden truth to the entire world. The most terrifying mugshot in history was snapped in that exact moment. Moses Harvey dragged the heavy carcass of that creature and draped it right over a sponge tub inside his bathroom. Stretching from the top of the tub all the way to the floor, its monstrous 30-foot-long tentacles completely dominated the space in that entire room. Then he picked up his camera and captured the historic first-ever photo of this monster. This one single picture completely shook the entire scientific community to its core. But the detail that had them deeply terrified was actually something else entirely. If the size of this creature caught in the shallow water near the shore is already this huge, then how unbelievably gigantic are the real killers hiding out in the extreme pitch-black depths of the ocean? Yeah, those original monsters that swallowed those heavy ships whole all those years ago were undoubtedly still 100% safe down in those bottomless ocean trenches. But regardless, that one single photo permanently shut down the debate and proved to the world that the mastermind serial killer known as the Kraken was definitely not just some made-up myth.
The science community slapped the name Architeuthis ducks on it, and humanity really thought that dark chapter was permanently closed. They genuinely thought this deadly serial killer was downgraded to just a basic museum exhibit. But that wasn't the reality at all. Like, sure, it got an official scientific name, but straight up wiping out this killer species was simply never something humans were capable of doing. The vast majority of Earth's oceans are still miles beyond our reach even today. A terrifying dark zone where virtually zero advanced human tech can survive, where not a single ray of sunlight ever hits. Down in those very same bottomless trenches, these mastermind killers are still lurking and surviving, completely untouched, with the very same ruthless MO and criminal mindset they used to hunt humans centuries ago. They are definitely still down there in the depths, just hiding and waiting to ambush us. Even with modern science leveled up to the max, spotting a giant squid alive in the ocean today is still an extreme next-level challenge. Their IQ is so incredibly high that even now they effortlessly dodge all our radars to survive. Way deeper than the reach of our ultra-advanced submarines and high-tech cameras, they actually have an entire secret world down there all to themselves. Who knows? Killers that are way bigger and way more dangerous than the monsters that obliterated those gigantic ships centuries ago might currently be hiding in that pitch-black darkness right now, just quietly watching us. Because just because they're off our screens and out of our sight doesn't mean they don't exist, right? That sea monster named the Kraken is definitely not extinct. Stepping right out of the history books, it is still out there surviving as a terrifying living reality in the endless, pitch-black void of the ocean today. Exactly how many more unhinged dark secrets are hiding in the unsolved depths of our oceans? That is still a huge question mark even today. At the end of every single ocean deep dive, a brand new loop of questions always gets left wide open. What are your actual thoughts on this deadly monster named the Kraken? Definitely sound off in the comments down below. If you're too busy to type a whole paragraph, just drop a thumbs up emoji or even just a dot in the comments to show your support. And hey, if you actually vibed with this video, you gotta support us by smashing that new hype feature on YouTube. For more mind-blowing documentaries dropping every single week, just do not forget to subscribe to Neutrix Vision. I'll catch you guys next week with another wild video. Until then, signing off.